In a dramatic shift in U.S. foreign policy towards Latin America, President Donald Trump has reignited tensions with China over the strategic importance of the Panama Canal. This development reflects a broader narrative of rising geopolitical competition between the two powers, particularly as the U.S. seeks to reassert its influence in a region increasingly viewed as within China's expanding reach. In his inauguration speech on January 20, Trump declared it was time for the United States to retake control of the Panama Canal, a key waterway that has long been a focal point of U.S. strategic interests. Following this assertion, U.S. Senator Eric Schmitt introduced a resolution that calls for the Panamanian government to expel Chinese interests and terminate their management of critical ports, specifically the ports of Balboa and Cristobal. Schmitt's resolution emphasizes the necessity for Panama to reaffirm its commitment to the canal's neutrality as defined by the 1977 Neutrality Treaty, while also seeking to reduce its dependence on Chinese state-owned enterprises. The canal is not neutral anymore. It's part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, Schmitt remarked in an interview with Fox News, underscoring concerns that the increasing Chinese presence could pose national security risks to the U.S. He further criticized past U.S. decisions regarding the canal, stating, "We simply cannot have that situation," referring to the potential military implications for U.S. naval operations. China's growing investment in Latin America has raised alarms within U.S. political circles, particularly as trade between China and Latin American countries surged to $489 billion in 2023, dramatically up from just $18 billion in 2002. Additionally, Chinese President Xi Jinping's inauguration of the Chancay megaport in Peru last November further highlighted China's ambitions in the region, prompting speculation about whether the U.S. might impose tariffs on goods coming from this port as a countermeasure. The Panamanian government has responded to Trump's threats by asserting its sovereignty. President José Raul Mulino has maintained that Panama's independence is non-negotiable and that the country does not cede control of the canal to any foreign power. Chinese officials have echoed these sentiments, with a spokesperson asserting, "We respect Panama's sovereignty over the canal." Historically, the Panama Canal has been a symbol of American engineering prowess and strategic dominance. Constructed between 1904 and 1914, the canal involved significant investment and human cost, including the loss of many lives. The U.S. relinquished control of the canal in 1999. Following the terms set by the Panama Canal Treaty signed by President Jimmy Carter. However, recent developments have reignited debates around this decision, with some U.S. lawmakers calling for a re-evaluation of this historical agreement. As tensions mount, the implications of this geopolitical tug-of-war extend beyond mere control of the canal. The potential for military posturing, economic sanctions, and further diplomatic strife looms large as each country vies for influence in a region that has historically been seen as the U.S.'s backyard. Looking ahead, the situation remains fluid. The U.S. will likely continue to monitor China's influence in Latin America closely as Trump's administration navigates this complex landscape. The actions taken in the coming months will be crucial in determining the future of U.S.-Latin American relations and the broader geopolitical dynamics in the region. The confrontation over the Panama Canal may serve as a catalyst for a more aggressive U.S. foreign policy aimed at countering Chinese influence, setting the stage for a new chapter in a long-standing rivalry. As the Lunar New Year approaches, China finds itself grappling with a significant slowdown in economic activity, raising concerns about the effectiveness of its recent stimulus measures. The latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics reveals a concerning dip in both manufacturing and services sectors, with the Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index (PMI) dropping to 49.1, its lowest point since August, and below the 50 mark that separates growth from contraction. This decline comes despite economists' expectations for modest expansion, underscoring the fragility of the recovery in the world's second-largest economy. The non-manufacturing PMI, which includes construction and services, fell to 50.2, signaling a cooling in sectors that are often buoyed by pre-holiday spending. Raymond Young, chief economist for Greater China at Australia and New Zealand Banking Group, commented on the unexpected severity of the decline, stating the economy is far from recovering, and hinted that further fiscal support may be essential to spur growth. The implications of this economic downturn are far-reaching. As factory activity typically slows during this time of year due to the Lunar New Year holiday, the extent of the current slowdown has alarmed analysts. Zhao Qingha, a senior statistician at the NBS, noted that manufacturing is particularly affected by the holiday as many workers return to their hometowns. Yet the data suggests deeper underlying issues. New export orders have plummeted to their lowest levels since February, indicating weak global demand that could stifle recovery efforts. The economic landscape is further complicated by China's ongoing struggle with weak domestic demand and increasing trade headwinds. Industrial profits have seen a decline for 3 consecutive years, with a reported fall of 3.3% in 2024 alone, despite a late surge in December. The sharp drop in new orders, both domestic and international, reinforces concerns that China's export-driven growth model is under strain, particularly as U.S. tariffs and competition from other manufacturing hubs intensify. In light of these challenges, the Chinese government's economic strategy is poised for critical reassessment. While the economy met its official growth target of 5% in 2024, the recovery remains uneven, with manufacturing sporadically thriving while consumption languishes due to a weak job market and an ongoing real estate crisis. The mounting trade surplus nearing $1 trillion has raised alarms among trade partners, particularly the European Union, which has accused Beijing of creating excess industrial capacity through state subsidies and imposing barriers on imports. Simultaneously, the geopolitical landscape complicates China's economic recovery efforts. As U.S.-China relations remain fraught, the risk of a trade war resurfaces with Donald Trump's return to the White House. His administration's potential push for tariffs could exacerbate the already tense economic rivalry and further strain China's manufacturing sector, which heavily relies on exports. In a parallel development, the UK is navigating its own precarious position in the evolving global landscape. As the Labour government seeks to redefine its relationship with China amidst a backdrop of shifting U.S. policies, officials are advocating for increased engagement and investment despite the risks. Chancellor of the Exchequer Rachel Reeves recently met with Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng, signaling a desire for a reset in UK-China relations even as the U.S. hardens its stance under Trump. The UK's strategy appears to diverge from its traditional allies, which could lead to significant diplomatic repercussions. Critics question the wisdom of deepening ties with China given the potential fallout from U.S. tariffs and the slowing Chinese economy. The Labour government's approach of cooperating, challenging, and competing with China reflects a pragmatic shift from their previous stance, yet it raises concerns about the long-term implications for national security and economic stability. Looking forward, both China and the UK face complex challenges as they navigate their respective economic landscapes amid geopolitical tensions. China's ability to rekindle growth will depend on its responsiveness to domestic and international pressures, while the UK must carefully balance its ambitions for economic engagement with the realities of a changing global order. As these narratives unfold, the world watches closely, anticipating the potential ripple effects on global trade, investment, and economic stability. Tensions in the South China Sea are escalating as the Chinese military recently confronted forces allied with the United States, raising alarms about the strategic landscape in the region. This confrontation is emblematic of a broader trend that analysts warn may lead to significant geopolitical shifts, particularly with China's ongoing military expansion. Recent assessments indicate that China is undertaking the most extensive military buildup since the 1930s, surpassing even the rapid expansion seen in Nazi Germany. The Pentagon's latest report underscores a stark reality: China's naval capabilities have grown to a point where it now boasts a fleet larger than that of the U.S., both in quantity and increasingly in quality. According to Chuck DeVore, a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and Chief National Initiatives Officer at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, China is engaging in an unprecedented military buildup that the world frankly hasn't seen since Adolf Hitler in the 1930s. This claim highlights the urgency of addressing China's military ambitions as they threaten to reshape the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific region. China's military advancements include significant enhancements to its nuclear arsenal, with projections suggesting an increase to over 1,000 warheads by 2030. The report reveals a substantial expansion in the People's Liberation Army Rocket Force (PLARF), which has added new intercontinental ballistic missiles (ICBMs) capable of striking the continental U.S. Furthermore, China has developed a robust fleet of hypersonic missiles, advancing its capabilities to potentially evade U.S. missile defenses. In a related context, U.S. military analysts are emphasizing the need for a strategic pivot in response to the shifting dynamics in the region. Brian Kurgan, operational planner at the Atlantic Council, argues that while closing the conventional naval gap with China will take years, the United States can rapidly enhance its presence by deploying ground forces in key maritime areas. Kurg advocates for a renewed military footprint in allied nations such as Japan, the Philippines, and Taiwan to counterbalance China's naval dominance. He asserts that the U.S. must raise and permanently deploy the right ground formations to key maritime terrain as soon as possible. The situation is further complicated by the diplomatic efforts of figures like Nicholas Burns, the former U.S. ambassador to China, who is set to return to the Harvard Kennedy School as a professor. Burns has been instrumental in managing U.S.-China relations during a tumultuous period marked by military incursions and cyber threats. His insights into the diplomatic landscape will be invaluable as the U.S. navigates its strategy regarding China, particularly in light of the growing military tensions and the potential for conflict. As U.S. military assessments continue to paint a concerning picture of China's military capabilities and intentions, it is clear that the stakes are high. The implications for U.S. interests and those of its allies are profound, as China's military ambitions could redefine regional power structures. The urgency of addressing these challenges cannot be overstated. The U.S. must act swiftly to recalibrate its military strategy and strengthen alliances to ensure stability in the face of an increasingly assertive China. In conclusion, the developments in the South China Sea and the broader implications of China's military buildup will likely dominate discussions in defense and diplomatic circles for the foreseeable future. The interplay between military preparedness and diplomatic engagement will be crucial as the U.S. seeks to maintain its influence in a rapidly changing global landscape. As this situation continues to evolve, both policymakers and analysts will need to remain vigilant and proactive in their responses to emerging threats.